Unit 101. Do the laundry. He took the sheet off the mattress. He took the pillowcase off the pillow. He took the towel off the towel bar. He put the sheet, pillowcase, and towel into the plastic laundry basket. He put his socks into the basket. He put his pants and shirts into the basket. He put his underwear and pajamas into the basket. He put the container of laundry soap into the basket. He put some quarters into his pocket. He opened his apartment door and walked downstairs. He went into the laundry room. He poured some laundry soap into the bottom of the washer. He put his clothes into the washer. He closed the lid of the washer. He moved one dial on the washer to big load. He moved another dial to hot. He put 6 quarters into the coin slot. He pushed the coin slot in. The machine started filling with hot water. He went back upstairs. He watched TV for 35 minutes. Unit 1. Unit 102. A drunk pilot. There were 102 passengers on the plane. They were waiting for the plane to take off. But the plane was just sitting there. The plane could not take off without a pilot. The co-pilot was already on board. But the pilot was not. Where was the pilot? The flight attendants didn't know. The co-pilot didn't know. The passengers didn't know. Finally, the pilot got on the plane. He was singing and laughing. He waved to all the passengers. He said hello. He told them his name 3 times. His eyes were bloodshot. His breath smelled of alcohol. He said, "Are you all ready to fly? We're going to fly. We're going to fly high into the sky." A passenger close to him was angry. "Why are you so late?" The pilot said, "I'm not late, you're early." He laughed at his own joke. "You're drunk," the passenger said. He dialed 911. The police came. They talked to the pilot. They took him off the plane. He was still laughing and singing. "Mom, if the police take the pilot to jail, who will fly our plane?" A little boy asked his mother. The flight attendant announced that a new pilot would arrive shortly. Many passengers looked at their watches. Unit 103. A free breakfast for everyone. Denny's is a popular restaurant. They are in all the big cities in America. They serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. To please their customers, Denny's announced a special event. On Monday after the Super Bowl, they offered a free breakfast to everyone in America. The free meal was a Grand Slam breakfast. The breakfast was from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. They told everyone to bring their appetites, not their cash. The delicious meal included pancakes, eggs, bacon, and sausages. People got up at the crack of dawn to beat the rush. Ben and Mary woke up at 5 a.m. Monday. They got dressed and drove to Denny's. They got in line at 5:20. "Oh, my," said Mary. "There's 100 people in front of us. Look how long this line is already. We should have come here at 4:20. The line moved slowly forward. Ben started talking to the man behind them. His name was Brad. Brad had brought his wife, their 5 kids, and his brother's 4 kids. "What a deal, huh? I only wish we had more kids to bring," Brad said. "They say there's no such thing as a free lunch. But today Denny's is showing America that there is such a thing as a free breakfast." Unit 104. Make a sandwich. The boy opened a jar of peanut butter. He spread the peanut butter onto a slice of bread. Then he opened the refrigerator and took out a jar of the grape jelly. He spread the jelly on top of the peanut butter. He put the jar back into the refrigerator. He put another slice of bread on top of the peanut butter and grape jelly. Now he had a sandwich. He opened the refrigerator again. He poured himself a big glass of milk, and put the milk back into the refrigerator. He put the sandwich on a plate. He carried the plate and the glass of milk over to the dining room table. He sat down. He turned on the TV and took a big bite out of his sandwich. Unit 105. Fry an egg. She poured a little vegetable oil into the frying pan. Then she turned on the stove. She took an egg out of the refrigerator. She cracked the egg into a small bowl. She put the eggshells into the kitchen trash bag. She waited for the oil to get hot. She poured the raw egg into the pan. After about 2 minutes, she flipped the egg over and cooked it for another 2 minutes. She turned off the stove and took the fried egg out of the pan. She put the egg on a small plate. She sprinkled pepper and salt on the egg. She took a fork out of the kitchen drawer. She walked over to the dining room table with her fork and plate. She tasted the egg. It was delicious. Unit 106. Watch a DVD. He took a DVD out of the package. The DVD was for Season 2 of the TV series Lost. He pointed the remote at his DVD player. He pushed the open button on his remote. The tray slid out of the player. He placed the DVD onto the tray. He pushed the close button on his remote. The tray slid back into the player. Some words came onto the TV screen. The words said that the FBI would arrest people if they did anything illegal with the DVD. Then a picture appeared saying Season 2. He pressed the play button on his remote. The show began. Unit 107. Make some coffee. She took the bag of coffee beans out of the freezer. She kept them in the freezer because the instructions on the bag said that is the best place. She poured the beans into the grinder. She pressed the grinder button for 10 seconds. Now she had ground coffee. She put a paper filter into a plastic cone. She put the cone on top of a coffee cup. She poured the ground coffee into the cone. Then she poured hot water into the cone. The hot water dripped through the ground coffee. She waited until the cup was full of hot coffee. She threw away the filter and the ground coffee. She took her cup of coffee to the dining room table. She sipped her coffee while she read the newspaper. Unit 108. Get dressed. He put on his underwear. He put on his slacks. He put a belt through the belt loops in his slacks. He put on a pair of black socks. Then he put on his brown shoes. He tied the shoelaces. He stood up and walked over to his closet. He found a short-sleeve golf shirt. It was blue and white. He pulled it on over his head. He tucked the shirt into his slacks. He zipped up his slacks and buckled his belt. He looked at himself in the mirror. He buttoned the 3 buttons on his golf shirt. He made sure the collar lay flat. He put his keys and wallet in his pocket. He left his apartment. Unit 109. Buy a lotto ticket. He went to the liquor store. He walked over to the lotto stand. He grabbed a super lotto form. He marked 6 numbers. They were the numbers for his birthday and his mom's birthday. He went to the counter and gave the clerk his form. The clerk put the form into the machine. The clerk gave him a printed ticket with 6 numbers on it. He gave the clerk $1. The clerk said, "Good luck." He thanked the clerk and walked out of the store. He hoped that this ticket would win $1 million. Unit 110. Brush your teeth. She walked into the bathroom. She took the cap off the tube of toothpaste. She squeezed some toothpaste onto her toothbrush. She turned on the cold water. She brushed her upper teeth and spit out some toothpaste. She brushed her lower teeth and spit out some more toothpaste. She rinsed out her toothbrush. She put the toothbrush back into the toothbrush holder. She put some water into a cup and rinsed out her mouth. She spit out the water and walked out of the bathroom. Unit 111. Shave your face. He walked into the bathroom. He turned on the water and rinsed his face. He picked up the can of shaving cream. He put some shaving cream onto his fingers. He spread the shaving cream all over his face and neck. He picked up the razor. He shaved both sides of his face. Then he shaved his upper lip. He shaved his chin. Then he shaved his neck. He started from the bottom of his neck and stroked upwards. He shaved carefully around his Adam's apple. He rinsed out the razor. He rinsed his face completely to remove all the shaving cream. He dried his face with a towel and looked in the mirror. There was no shaving cream on his face. He was finished. Unit 112. Vacuum the carpet. She inspected the carpet for small items. She saw a paper clip and a rubber band. She picked them up. She put them into a little box on the kitchen counter. She plugged in the vacuum cleaner. She turned on the switch. The cat ran out of the room. She vacuumed the living room. She went back and forth. She was finished 10 minutes later. The green carpet looked clean. She pulled the vacuum cleaner plug out of the wall socket. She put the vacuum cleaner back into the hall closet. The cat returned to the living room. It climbed onto the back of the sofa. It looked out the window at the birds. Unit 113. Change a light bulb. He turned on the light switch. The hall light went on. Then he heard a popping sound because the light bulb blew out. It was time to change the bulb. He went into the kitchen. He opened a kitchen cabinet. He looked at 5 different light bulbs. One of them was 100 watts. That was the one he needed. He went back into the hall. He unscrewed 3 screws. These screws held the glass globe in place. The globe protected the light bulb. He removed the glass globe. He looked into the bottom of it. A dead bug was in the bottom. He put the bug into the trash. He unscrewed the old light bulb. He shook it. It made a noise. He screwed in the new light bulb. He replaced the globe. He screwed in the 3 screws. The light went on. He threw out the old bulb. Unit 114. Change a tire. He went out to his car. Something was wrong. He looked at the left rear tire. It was flat. There is probably a nail in the tire, he thought. He had to change the tire. He opened his trunk. He pulled out the spare tire. He pulled out the jack. He pulled out a lug nut wrench. He took the hubcap off the flat tire. He jacked up the car. He took off all 4 lug nuts. He pulled the flat tire off the car. He put the spare tire on the car. He tightened the lug nuts. He lowered the car to the ground. He put the hubcap on the spare tire. He put the flat tire into the trunk. He put the jack and the lug nut wrench into the trunk. He shut the trunk. He went into his apartment and washed his hands. Unit 115. Peel a carrot. She opened the refrigerator. She took a carrot out of the refrigerator. She took a carrot peeler out of the kitchen drawer. She peeled the carrot. She put the carrot skin on a white plate. She rinsed the carrot peeler. She chopped off the two ends of the carrot. She put the carrot ends on the white plate. She chopped the carrot in half. She rinsed the knife. She sprinkled a little salt onto the carrot halves. She put the carrot halves on a blue plate. She put the blue plate on the table. The blue plate was for her. She put the white plate on the floor. Her pet rabbit ran over to the white plate. It ate everything on the plate. The rabbit didn't need salt. Unit 116. Make some toast. She took a bagel out of the package. She took a knife out of the drawer. She sliced the bagel in half. She sliced it carefully, because a bagel is hard to cut. If the knife slipped, she might cut her finger. She put each half of the bagel into the toaster. She pushed the toaster handle down. 1 minute later, both bagel slices popped up. She buttered each slice. Then she put the slices into the microwave. She microwaved the slices for 15 seconds. She waited a few seconds for the slices to cool down. Then she bit into a slice. It was hot and chewy. It was delicious. She dipped it into her coffee. She took another bite. Now it was wet and chewy. Unit 117. 2 babies. She wanted to have 2 babies, 1 boy and 1 girl. She wanted to have the boy first and the girl a year later. That way they could grow up together. He said that was okay with him. She said, "What do you mean, okay? It shouldn't be okay with you. You should say that you want 2 babies just as much as I do. If you don't want 2 babies as much as I do, then forget it." He asked, "Forget it? You mean that we won't have 2 babies unless I really want to have 2 babies?" She said, "Yes, that's right. If you don't really want 2 babies, then we won't have 2 babies." "Okay," he said, "then let's not have 2 babies. Are you sure about that?" she asked. He nodded his head, "Yes, I'm sure. We can't afford even 1 baby." "Okay," she said. "Goodbye." "What do you mean, goodbye?" he asked. She told him she was going to leave him. She was going to find a man who wanted to have 2 babies with her. He told her that he was just kidding. Of course he really wanted to have 2 babies with her. "Too late," she said. "You already told me how you really feel." Unit 118. Problems at home. Emily sat down on the sofa. She took off her shoes. She put her feet on the coffee table. She leaned back. She picked up the remote and turned on the TV. It was 6 o'clock. The news was on 3 channels. She didn't want to see the news. The news depressed her. It was usually about accidents and murders. There was too much bad news on the TV news. She found a talk show to watch. It was Ellen. She liked Ellen. Ellen was a comedian. She told good jokes. She showed animals doing funny things. She gave expensive gifts to her fans occasionally. This show was a rerun, because Ellen's live show was usually on at 4 o'clock. But that didn't matter to Emily. All she wanted to do was relax. Her life was one problem after another. Her husband had just lost his job. Her only child had dropped out of high school. Even worse, he had left home. He told his mom he would call from time to time. But he hadn't called in 2 weeks. She was worried sick. She didn't know where he was. She didn't know if he was dead or alive. Her husband said she shouldn't worry. He had done the same thing when he was 17. But when he found out that life on the road wasn't as easy as he thought it was, he returned home and got his high school diploma. Unit 119. What's that smell? It was a warm, sunny day. She put a hat on to keep the sun out of her eyes. She needed to visit her bank. She walked down to the corner. There were 4 buildings at the intersection. One was her bank. Opposite the bank was a fast food restaurant. The other 2 buildings were a dry cleaner and an office building. Before she arrived at the corner, she could smell the fried chicken. The restaurant was open 7 days a week, and the odor of fried chicken was in the neighborhood daily. She was a vegetarian. She used to eat meat and fish. But that was before she found a dead cat in her dumpster one day. Of course, she had smelled the dead cat before she opened the dumpster lid. Everyone knows the smell of dead flesh. She knew that something in the dumpster was dead, but she didn't know what. Just in case it was a human, some people dump their babies into dumpsters. She opened the lid. She saw the cat. Flies covered most of it. They were enjoying their meal. She loved cats. She had 2 of her own. A week later at a restaurant, she ordered a hamburger. She took 1 bite out of it, and almost gagged. She spit it out. All she could think about was the smell of that dead cat. That was the day she became a vegetarian. Unit 120. Time to shop. It was time to go to the market. He had no bananas, no apples, and no milk. He got into his car and drove to the market. It was only 5 minutes away. The parking lot was almost empty. Good, he thought. He wouldn't have to stand in a long line. He parked his car and walked over to the shopping cart area. He pulled out one of the carts and pushed it ahead of him into the store. Inside, he grabbed an alcohol wipe and wiped the handle of the cart. Then he grabbed another wipe and wiped his own hands. You can never be too careful, he thought. He turned left and walked over to the produce section. Today was his lucky day. Apples were on sale, $1 a pound. Usually they were $2 a pound or more. He put 10 apples into a plastic bag and weighed the bag. It was 3 pounds. He walked over to the bananas. They were the regular price, 79 cents a pound. He bought 3 pounds of bananas. When he saw the carrots, he remembered that he needed carrots, too. He put a 2-pound bag of carrots into his cart. They were only $1.29. He walked to the dairy section and saw that a gallon of milk was $4. He put 1 into his cart and walked back to the front of the store. He paid for his food, got his receipt, and walked out to his car. He put the food into his trunk and drove home. Unit 121. Fix the car. She got into her car. She hoped it would start. Twice in the past month, the car had not started when she turned the key. It had started the second time she turned the key, but that made her nervous. Sooner or later, she might have to turn the key 3 times, then 4 times. She had called her mechanic. He said to bring the car in when she had time. When was that, she wondered. She worked 2 jobs. She was a clerk at a clothing store. She spent 5 days a week folding clothes or hanging them up on hangers. People who tried on clothes usually left them on the floor in the dressing room. They rarely folded them or hung them back up on the hangers. The store was only 15 minutes from her apartment, and parking was free. Also, she worked 4 nights a week at a restaurant. She was a waitress. She made good money from her tips. Usually, the customers were friendly and interesting. She liked her waitress job, but it was a 30-minute drive from her apartment. The restaurant closed at 10 p.m. She did not want to be stuck in the parking lot late at night if her car didn't start. Her mechanic wasn't open on weekends. She decided to ask her boss to give her a day off from the clothing store. Then she could still drive to the restaurant that night after her car was fixed. she would miss only one day of work. Unit 122. Take a drive. She wanted to travel. He asked her where she wanted to go. She said she wanted to just get on the road and drive for a day or two. She wanted to get out of the house and out of the city. They packed a small suitcase. They packed their underwear, shorts, and toothbrushes, among other things. They looked at a map. Should we drive into the mountains, or along the coastline? He asked. She said it didn't matter. The next day they got up early. They put the suitcase into the trunk. He drove to a gas station and filled up the tank. He drove onto the freeway and headed west. So, we're going up the coast? She asked. Yes, he told her. Maybe we'll see some whales, she said. A half-hour later, they could see the ocean. They drove north on the two-lane highway. After another hour, he pulled over. They got out of the car and walked onto the beach. Even though it was windy and chilly, they saw surfers in the ocean. They were sitting on their boards, waiting for waves. She was shivering. He put his arm around her to help keep her warm. She smiled at him. Let's continue driving, she said. We can pull over again when the sun is higher. Unit 123. A thief on the sidewalk. She looked at the man walking along the sidewalk next to the nice houses. He didn't live in any of those houses. She had seen this man several times before. He looked like a criminal. She knew not to judge a book by its cover, but this man was no good. She drove by him. He looked at her car as she drove by. She continued driving. She watched him in her rear-view mirror. She got to the corner and stopped. She continued to watch him walking in her direction. Suddenly, he turned left up a driveway. A red SUV was parked in the driveway right next to the sidewalk. She saw him walk up to the driver's door. He returned to the sidewalk and continued walking in her direction. What was that all about, she wondered. Then she realized that he had tested the door to see if it was locked. He is a criminal, she thought. That's what he does. He just walks through our neighborhoods looking for cars to break into. She called the police. She described him. The officer said he knew who the man was. Residents called 2 or 3 times a week to report him walking by. But the police couldn't arrest him for walking around. They had to catch him with stolen goods. But he was testing that SUV door to see if it was unlocked, she said. I'm sorry, said the officer. That's not against the law. If you see him actually steal something, give us a call. Unit 124. A cat scratch. Kenny was crying. Why are you crying? Mom asked Kenny. The cat scratched me, said Kenny. The cat had scratched Kenny on his hand. Kenny showed his hand to his mom. The scratch didn't look too bad. It wasn't a deep scratch. Mom went to the kitchen. Kenny went with her. She turned on the water. She put his hand under the water. She washed the scratch with soap. She rinsed off the soap. She took a Band-Aid out of the kitchen cabinet. She put the Band-Aid on the scratch. She said he would be okay. Why did the cat scratch you? She asked. Kenny said he didn't know why the cat scratched him. Just then, Kenny's little sister walked into the kitchen. She knew why the cat scratched Kenny. I know why Tiger scratched him, Mommy, she said. He was pulling Tiger's tail. Unit 125. School fight. One day at school, Harry pushed Scott. Scott pushed Harry back. Harry punched Scott in the face. Scott went home with a bruise on his face. He had a red bruise on his face. His mom said, "Who did this to you? Who hit you?" His dad asked, "Did you hit him back? I hope you hit him back. Don't be a chicken. You must not be a chicken." Scott said he had pushed Harry back. His dad told him to punch Harry next time. Scott went to school the next day. Harry pushed him to the floor. Scott got up and punched Harry in the face. Harry fell down. His nose was bleeding. A teacher walked by. He picked up Harry off the floor. The teacher called Scott's dad. "Scott punched Harry," he said. "Harry's nose is bleeding." Scott's dad said, "That's my boy." Unit 126. The Painter. The painter was on the ladder. The ladder was on the sidewalk. The ladder was leaning against the wall. The painter was standing about 10 feet above the sidewalk. He was holding a spray gun. He was painting the wall with a spray gun. He was painting the wall white. The wall was part of the 99-cent store. The store had big glass windows. The painter had taped plastic over the windows. Plastic covered the big glass windows. The painter wore goggles over his eyes. The goggles covered his eyes. Customers walked into the store. Customers walked out of the store. They walked under the ladder. They walked under the painter. Tiny drops of paint fell on the customers. Tiny drops of paint fell on the cars. Tiny drops of paint fell on the sidewalk. The painter didn't care. Tiny drops of paint were not his problem. Unit 127. Halloween. It was Halloween, the last day of October. It was October 31st. Halloween was Freddy's favorite day. He liked Halloween better than Christmas. He liked Halloween better than his birthday. Halloween was dress-up day. Halloween was costume day. Halloween was Superman day. On Halloween, Freddy was Superman. Every Halloween, Freddy wore a Superman costume. He wore his red boots. He wore his blue pants. He wore his yellow belt. He wore his red cape. He wore his blue shirt. His blue shirt had a big red S on it. The S was for Superman. Superman was Freddy's hero. Superman was strong. Superman could pick up a train. Superman could pick up a house. Superman could pick up a ship. Freddy loved his costume. He wore his Superman costume every Halloween. Everyone said, "Hello, Superman." To him. He said hello to everyone. People gave Superman lots of candy. Unit 128. School starts. It was the first day of school. Pete was in the first grade. He got on the school bus. It was a big yellow school bus. He did not know the kids on the bus. The kids on the bus did not know him. Many kids were talking. They were talking with one another. Pete sat in a seat by himself. He sat alone. He looked out the window. His mom was standing outside the window. He waved goodbye to his mom. She waved goodbye to him. The bus took off. The bus was going to school. Another boy sat down next to Pete. He said hello to Pete. Pete said hello to him. The boy's name was Eddie. He was in the first grade. He said he was a new student. He didn't know anyone. Pete said he was a new student, too. He didn't know anyone, either. Unit 129. The indoor antenna. Brian didn't have cable TV. He didn't have satellite TV. He had an antenna for his TV. He had an indoor antenna. But it was an old antenna. The reception was bad. He needed to buy a new antenna. He went to Best Buy. The antennas were in boxes. He looked at the boxes. Which antenna was the best? He asked a clerk at Best Buy. Which antenna is the best? He asked the clerk. The clerk said, "This is the best antenna." He showed Brian the box. Brian asked the price. "What is the price?" he asked. The clerk said the price was $50. Brian took the antenna home. He plugged one end of the antenna into his TV. He plugged the other end of the antenna into the wall socket. He turned on his TV. The reception was bad. He returned the antenna. Unit 130. The tomato. The emergency number is 911. The emergency number is for emergencies. An emergency is a fire. An emergency is a crime. An emergency is an accident. Steve dialed 911. "What is your emergency?" asked the dispatcher. "They put a tomato on my hamburger," said Steve. "Excuse me?" said the dispatcher. "They put a tomato on my hamburger. I hate tomatoes. I told them no tomatoes." The dispatcher said, "Sir, a tomato is not an emergency." The dispatcher hung up. Steve dialed 911 again. "What is your emergency?" asked the same dispatcher. "They put a tomato on my hamburger. I hate tomatoes." Steve said. The dispatcher asked, "Where are you?" "I will send the police." Steve said he was at Burger King. The police arrived at Burger King. They put Steve in the back of their police car. They took him to jail. Unit 131. The birthday cake. It was Jenny's 4th birthday. She was 4 years old. Her mom baked a cake for her. Her mom baked a chocolate cake for her. The cake had 2 layers. Her mom put vanilla frosting on the bottom layer. Her mom put vanilla frosting on the top layer. Her mom put vanilla frosting all around the cake. Now the chocolate cake was completely white. Her mom put 4 pink candles on top of the cake. Her dad lit the 4 pink candles. The 4 pink candles were lit. Jenny's mom and dad sat down next to Jenny. They sang happy birthday to her. "Happy birthday to you," they sang. Jenny sang with her mom and dad. "Happy birthday to me," she sang. Her mom said, "Now make a wish and blow out the candles." Jenny made a wish. Then she blew out all 4 pink candles. Unit 132. Dinner chores. "Annie, set the table, please," said Mom. "It's time for dinner." Annie said it wasn't her week to set the table. It was her week to clear the table. She said it was Lisa's week to set the table. Lisa was in the living room. Lisa was playing with the dog in the living room. Lisa was having fun with the dog. "Lisa," Mom said, "come here and set the table. It's dinner time." Lisa said it wasn't her week to set the table. It was Mark's week to set the table. It was Lisa's week to feed the dog. "Where is Mark?" Mom asked. Lisa said, "He's riding his bike." Mark was outside riding his bike. Mom asked Annie, "Do you want extra dessert tonight?" Annie said yes. "What do I have to do?" she asked. Her mom said all she had to do was set the table. Unit 133. Pay the interest. Jake and Larry are brothers. They used to be friends. They used to talk to each other. But now they aren't friends. Now they don't talk to each other. They have a problem. The problem is money. Jake had borrowed $500 from Larry. Larry had lent $500 to Jake. Jake paid Larry back. Jake paid Larry back the $500. Larry was not happy. Larry wanted interest. He wanted $50 interest. Jake said Larry had not asked for interest. Jake said, "You didn't ask for interest. I won't pay you interest." Larry said he wanted 10% interest. He said 10% was not much. Jake said 10% was too much. He said, "You are my brother. You aren't a bank. A bank charges interest. A brother doesn't charge interest." Larry said that everyone charges interest. Friends charge interest. Parents charge interest. Sisters charge interest. Brothers charge interest. Unit 134. He loves his country. "I don't like John," she told her husband. "Why don't you like John?" he asked his wife. She said that John said bad things about Americans. He said Americans are lazy. He said Americans are greedy. He said Americans are selfish. He said Americans are unfriendly. John said the people in his country aren't lazy. The people in his country aren't greedy. The people in his country aren't selfish. The people in his country aren't unfriendly. "But John is new here," said her husband. "He doesn't know anyone yet. He doesn't have any friends. When he has new friends, he will change his mind. He will say different things. He will say good things about Americans." He told his wife to be patient. She didn't want to be patient. "A new person shouldn't say bad things," she said. "He should go back to his country." Unit 135. The winner. Victor never won at anything. He played Monopoly. He lost at Monopoly. He played Scrabble. He lost at Scrabble. He played checkers. He lost at checkers. He played chess. He lost at chess. He played tennis. He lost at tennis. His dad told him not to worry. "Someone has to win, and someone has to lose," Dad said. "But I'm always the loser," Victor said. "I'm never the winner." His dad said, "Don't worry. These are games. You are playing games. Games are not important." Victor asked, "What is important?" "I thought games are important." His dad said that being a good person is important. He said the most important thing is to be a good person. He said that Victor was a good person. Victor was kind. Victor was polite. Victor was friendly. "Thank you, Dad," Victor said. "I am a good person, so I am a winner." Unit 136. Forever Single. "No one will ever marry me," said Paula. "Of course someone will marry you," said her sister Joan. Paula said she wasn't pretty. "A man wants to marry a pretty woman. I think you're pretty. Some man will marry you." "Look at Mama," said Joan. "Mama is not a pretty woman. Daddy married Mama, so someone will marry you. Of course someone will marry you." Paula did not think so. She was 30 years old. She was not married. She didn't have a boyfriend. Her last boyfriend was 10 years ago. She didn't go out on dates. No man ever asked her out on a date. "I can't even get a date," she said. "How can I get married if I can't even get a date?" Joan told her to stop worrying. She would find a man when she stopped worrying about finding a man. Unit 137. A new family. "I'm too old to have children now," Kim said to her friend. "But I have a lot of money. I have enough money to adopt children. I am going to adopt 2 baby children. I am going to adopt a baby girl and a baby boy." Kim went to the adoption agency. She said, "I want 2 babies, please. I want a little girl and a little boy." The woman at the agency said okay. She told Kim to fill out many forms. Kim had to fill out lots of forms. After she filled out all the forms, Kim gave them to the woman. The woman told her that now Kim must wait. She had to wait for the 2 babies. "How long do I have to wait?" Kim asked. The woman said Kim might have to wait 1 year. Kim said, "That's okay. I can wait 1 year." Unit 138. The paint job. Danny's fence needed painting. He wanted to paint it white. He looked in the phone book. He looked under P for painters. He called up a painter. "How much to paint my fence?" he asked. "How big is your fence?" the painter asked. "It goes all the way around my yard," Danny said. "How big is your yard?" the painter asked. "My yard is half as big as a football field," Danny said. The painter said $300. "It will cost $300, he said. That was a good deal. Danny said, "That's a good deal." The painter came over the next day. He painted Danny's fence white. It took him only 3 hours. Danny looked at his white fence. He liked it. "You did a good job," he said to the painter. "My white fence looks great. How long will this paint last?" "It will last a lifetime," said the painter. Unit 139. Baseball Dreams. Paul loved baseball. He loved baseball more than football. He loved baseball more than basketball. His favorite team was the Yankees. He wanted to play baseball for the Yankees. He practiced baseball almost every day. He practiced throwing the baseball. He practiced catching the baseball. He practiced hitting the baseball. He practiced pitching the baseball. He slept with his baseball glove. His baseball glove was under his pillow. At night he dreamed about baseball. He dreamed about playing for the Yankees. He played on his high school team. He played on his college team. His coaches loved Paul. They said he was going to be a baseball player. Then Paul was in a car accident. It was a bad accident. Paul couldn't walk. His doctors said he would never walk again. Paul said, "I will walk again. I will run again. I will play baseball for the Yankees." Unit 140. Walk the dog. "Tommy, the dog is scratching at the door," his mom yelled. "Take him for a walk. Make sure you take a plastic bag with you." Tommy said he didn't hear the dog scratching. He said the dog did not need to go for a walk. He said there were no plastic bags in the house. His mom said, "Take the dog for a walk right now, please." Tommy got the dog leash, a plastic bag, and a little plastic shovel. "How can I finish my homework when I have to walk the dog?" he asked his mom. "You can finish your homework when you get back," his mom said. He put the leash around the dog's neck and walked outside. It was cold outside. The dog walked to a tree. It pooped. Tommy put the poop into the plastic bag. "Yuck," he said. "This is worse than doing homework." Unit 141. The mole. She had a mole on her face. She hated it. It was on her left cheek. It wasn't far from her mouth. She touched it every day. She wished that it would go away. But it didn't. It was an ugly brown bump on her cheek. It was a dark brown circle. It was about the size of a pencil eraser. Everyone could see her mole. Everyone looked at her mole. She hated her mole. Every night she scrubbed her cheek extra hard. Maybe she could scrub the mole away. Every day she pressed down on the mole with her finger. Maybe she could press the mole away. She asked her mom to cut the mole off with a razor. "I won't cut it off with a razor," said her mom. "I'm not a doctor. I'll take you to a doctor. Maybe he can cut it off with a razor." Unit 142. A barking dog. The lady's dog barked too much. It barked in the morning. It barked in the afternoon. It barked at night. Every time Kevin walked past the front door, the dog barked. Every time Kevin walked past the back door, the dog barked. Every time anybody walked past, the dog barked. He told the landlord. "That lady's dog barks too much," he said. The landlord said he would talk to the lady. But he never did. Kevin wanted to shut the dog up. It was a little dog. But it had a big mouth. The dog's mouth was bigger than the dog. What could Kevin do? One day he yelled at the dog. He yelled, "Shut up, you stupid dog." The dog barked at Kevin. The lady got angry. She yelled at Kevin. "Sugar is not stupid. Don't call Sugar stupid," she said. "He's a lot smarter than you are." Unit 143. A Christmas Present. "What do you want for Christmas?" Daddy asked Anthony. Anthony wanted a little brother. "Can I have a little brother for Christmas?" Anthony asked. "Well, I'll have to talk to your mother," said Daddy. "Why do you have to talk to Mommy?" Anthony asked. "Who's going to change the diapers?" Daddy asked. "You're right, Daddy. We need Mommy to change the diapers." Mommy walked into the room. Anthony told Mommy that he wanted a little brother for Christmas. Mommy said, "Well, I'll have to talk to your father." "Why do you have to talk to Daddy?" Anthony asked. "Who's going to pay the doctor?" asked Mommy. "You're right, Mommy. We need Daddy to pay the doctor." Mommy and Daddy walked out of the room. A little later, they came back into the room. Mommy said, "You can't have a little brother for Christmas. But if you can wait, you can have a little brother in April." Unit 144. Cross the street. Jimmy wanted to cross the street. He was on the south side of the street. He wanted to get to the north side of the street. He was in the middle of the block. His father always told him to cross at an intersection. His father always said never cross in the middle of the block. Jimmy walked to the intersection. There was a traffic light at the intersection. It had three colors: red, green, and yellow. Red was at the top. Green was at the bottom. Yellow was in the middle. He looked at the crosswalk sign. It was red. It was a red hand. The red hand meant don't walk. He waited for the red hand to change. It changed to a white figure walking. The white figure walking meant walk. Jimmy looked both ways. Then he walked across the street. He walked in the crosswalk. Unit 145. Who sits in the front? The boys were going to the beach. Dad was going to drive them to the beach. The drive to the beach would take an hour. Dave and Dick loved the beach. They also loved the drive to the beach. They loved to look out the window. They loved to stick their heads and arms out the window and feel the breeze. They also loved to be in the front seat. They both preferred the front seat. They both hated the back seat. "Let's go, boys," Dad said. "Let's go to the beach." Both boys ran out of the house. They ran straight to the front door of the car. Dave got there first. Dick got there second. Dave pulled the door open. Dick fell to the ground. Dave got into the front seat and shut the door. "Guess what? You can sit in the back seat," he said to Dick. Unit 146. The World Map. Jerry was looking at a map. It was a map of the world. The map showed many countries. It showed all the countries in the world. All the countries were different colors. There were red countries, green countries, and blue countries. Jerry pointed at one country. "Daddy, why is this country red? Is it on fire? Did someone paint the ground red? Does it have a lot of tomatoes?" Jerry pointed at another country. It was a green country. "Daddy, why is this country green? Does it have a lot of grass? Did someone paint the ground green?" Jerry pointed at another country. It was a blue country. "Daddy, why is this country blue? Is it full of blue water? Does it have a lot of bluebirds? Did someone paint the ground blue?" His daddy said, "No, the colors make the map pretty. They don't mean anything." Unit 147. Go to the park. Chuck wanted to go to the park after dinner. His mom wanted him to stay home after dinner. She didn't want him to go to the park. She said it was dark at the park. But Chuck said it wasn't dark at the park. "There are lights at the park, Mom," he said. But she said there were only a few lights at the park. She said there were many dark places in the park. "Bad people go to the park at night," she said. "Bad people do bad things. They do bad things to good people. You are a good person. I don't want something bad to happen to you." Chuck said, "Nothing bad will happen to me. I will go with my two friends. We will be together. All three of us will be together. We will stay away from the dark places. We will stay under the lights." Unit 148. Drive the car. Charlie wanted to drive the car. "Can I drive the car, Dad?" he asked. "You can drive the car," his dad said. Charlie followed his dad out to the car. His dad opened the driver's door. "You are the driver," he said. Charlie got into the car. His dad closed the driver's door. His dad walked around the car. He opened the passenger door. He sat next to Charlie. He gave Charlie the key. Charlie put the key into the ignition. Charlie turned the key. The car started. Charlie was so excited. He turned the steering wheel left. He turned the steering wheel right. Left, right, left, right. He honked the horn. He honked the horn again. Honk. Honk. He turned on the left blinker. He turned on the right blinker. Blink. Blink. He asked, "Am I a good driver, Dad?" His dad said, "Son, you're a very good driver." Unit 149. Something's biting him. Joe went to the doctor. He had red bites all over his body. He had red bites on his face. He had red bites on his chest. He had red bites on his back. He had red bites on his legs. But he didn't have red bites on his feet or hands. "Why don't you have red bites on your feet? Why don't you have red bites on your hands?" Dr. Brown asked. "I don't know. I am the patient. You're the doctor. Why do I have red bites all over my body?" asked Joe. Dr. Brown said Joe had fleas. "You have fleas," Dr. Brown said. "Do you have a dog?" Joe said he didn't have a dog. "Then get a dog," said Dr. Brown. "Why should I get a dog?" Joe asked. "Because then the fleas will bite the dog instead of you," said Dr. Brown. Unit 150. Visit the ocean. Dad took Beth to the ocean. This was her first visit to the ocean. This was her first visit to the beach. This was the first time she saw the sandy beach. She loved the sand. She dug holes in the sand. She filled up the holes. She held the sand in her hands. She dropped the sand out of her hands. She picked up the sand. She threw the sand. Her dad picked her up. She held on to him. He carried her to the edge of the water. He held both her hands. He let her stand in the water. Her feet got wet. She stood in the water. She watched the water cover her feet. She bent down. She picked up some wet sand. She threw the wet sand. She sat down in the water. She dug holes in the wet sand. Dad sat down next to her.